Hey everyone. So picture this. You're standing in the grocery store checkout line, and the person in front of you is literally choosing between buying milk for their kids or getting enough food to last the week. That's not a hypothetical situation anymore. That's the reality for millions of Americans right now, and it's getting worse. Today, we need to talk about America's food stamp crisis, because honestly, it's affecting way more people than you probably think. Let me break this down for you like we're just having coffee and chatting, because this stuff matters, and it's actually not that complicated once you get past all the jargon. So first things first, what even are food stamps? Well, these days, they're not actually stamps anymore. The program is officially called SNAP, which stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And instead of physical stamps, people get an EBT card that works like a debit card. It's basically government assistance that helps low-income families afford groceries. Pretty straightforward, right? Now here's where things get messy. We're in the middle of what experts are calling a food stamp crisis, and it's hitting from multiple angles at once. The biggest punch came in March 2023, when emergency pandemic benefits ended. During COVID, the government boosted SNAP benefits because, well, pandemic. But when those extra benefits expired, over 40 million Americans saw their food assistance drop. We're talking an average cut of about $90 per person per month. That might not sound like much, but when you're already struggling, that's a week's worth of groceries just vanishing. But wait, it gets more complicated. Inflation has been absolutely brutal on grocery prices. Like, have you seen the price of eggs lately? It's wild. Food prices have jumped by about 20 to 25% over the past few years, but SNAP benefits haven't kept pace with that increase. So even people who are still getting assistance are finding that their benefits buy way less food than they used to. It's like getting a pay cut while everything gets more expensive at the same time. Here's something that might surprise you. We're talking about over 42 million Americans on SNAP. That's roughly 1 in 8 people. And it's not just who you might think. Sure, there are unemployed folks and families living in poverty, but there are also working people, like people with full-time jobs who still can't afford groceries. There are seniors on fixed incomes, disabled individuals, and increasingly, families that would have been considered middle class not too long ago. The face of food insecurity in America is way more diverse than most people realize. So why is this happening? Well, it's kind of a perfect storm situation. First, you've got the inflation thing I mentioned. Then you've got stagnant wages. People's paychecks haven't been growing at the same rate as their expenses. Add in rising housing costs, healthcare expenses, and all the other bills that keep piling up, and suddenly families are having to make impossible choices. Do you pay rent or buy food? Do you get your prescription filled or feed your kids? The pandemic also exposed and worsened a lot of existing problems in our food system. Supply chain issues made food more expensive and sometimes harder to find. Some families who had never needed assistance before suddenly found themselves applying for SNAP. And while many people have returned to work, wages haven't recovered enough to match the cost of living increases. There's also this thing where SNAP has a bunch of eligibility requirements that can be really strict. In most states, you can't have more than about $2,000 in savings and still qualify. Think about that for a second. The program basically requires you to stay poor to get help. If you're working hard and trying to save for an emergency, you might lose your benefits. It's a system that can trap people rather than help them get ahead. And here's what this looks like in real life. Food banks are seeing record demand. Schools are reporting more kids coming to class hungry. Parents are skipping meals so their children can eat. Seniors are choosing between buying food and buying medication. People are taking on debt just to buy groceries. This isn't happening in some far-off place. This is happening in cities, suburbs, and rural communities all across America. The ripple effects are huge too. Kids who don't get enough to eat struggle in school. It's hard to focus on math when your stomach is growling. People's health deteriorates when they can't afford nutritious food, which leads to more healthcare costs down the line. Food insecurity is linked to higher rates of depression and anxiety. This crisis touches everything. So what can be done about it? Well, there are a bunch of proposals floating around. Some people want to increase SNAP benefit levels to match actual food costs. Others are pushing to relax some of those strict eligibility requirements I mentioned. There's talk about adjusting benefits more quickly when food prices spike, kind of like an automatic stabilizer. Some states are experimenting with programs that give SNAP recipients extra money for buying fruits and vegetables. Food banks and community organizations are doing incredible work filling in the gaps. But they'll tell you straight up, charity can't solve systemic problems. These organizations are stretched thin and running out of resources themselves. The thing is, this isn't just about individual hardship, though that's obviously hugely important. This is about the kind of country we want to be. We're the wealthiest nation in the world, and yet millions of our neighbors, co-workers, and fellow Americans are worried about where their next meal is coming from. That's a choice we're making as a society, whether we realize it or not. Look, I know this was kind of heavy, but it's important to understand what's really going on. The food stamp crisis isn't about lazy people gaming the system. That's a myth. It's about working families, seniors, children, and people with disabilities struggling to afford basic necessities in an economy that's leaving too many people behind. The more people understand this issue, the more pressure there is to actually do something about it. So talk about this with your friends and family. Pay attention to what your representatives are saying about food assistance. Support your local food banks if you can. And maybe most importantly, don't look away from this problem just because it feels uncomfortable. If this video opened your eyes to what's really happening with food insecurity in America, do me a favor and smash that like button. It helps more people see this important info. And definitely subscribe to the channel, because we're going to keep diving into the issues that actually matter and affect real people's lives. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss future videos. Let me know in the comments if you or someone you know has been affected by snap cuts. Let's keep this conversation going. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.